So that's why we'll have another conversation, this time between myself and one person only, which is Floriane de Saint Pierre. We've had some really bright minds here on the stage. People working for brands in cultural ways, in commercial ways, people working at brands like Michele Fuss and formerly Pieter Kool. Floriane connects the people, the creators, working for brands with the brands themselves. So she is the headhunter, I would say one of the most important headhunters on the globe, connecting creative talent with fashion and luxury brands. She operates from Paris and from Milan, and she has a little business in New York as well. And she is the lady who positioned, amongst others, Christopher Bailey at Burberry, who is now leaving, Angela Ahrendts from Burberry at Apple, and she was involved in the placement of Alessandro Michele at Gucci, and he's now hugely successful, as you all know. So please welcome Floriane de Saint Pierre. So would you like to sit to the right or to the left of me? Well,
wherever,
okay.
Wherever.
Floriane, I'm really honored and very pleased to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And you were mentioning Alessandro Michele. In fact, he has his show at 4 o'clock today.
So that's what I mean. and Floriane is here while her biggest client is currently showing. So thank you very much for that. Well, we discussed creativity. We discussed designing for brands. You have been in the retail jury this morning. What were your impressions looking at the nominations and entering into a discussion with some real experts in this field?
So, Robert, it's not because you are here, but I think it's very, very important, to have such events, because we are behind the scene. We are so much convinced, and it's all my life is dedicated to talent, in fact, because I just see that creative talent create sustainability for brands, sustainability, societal sustainability. So these events that give a platform of visibility to talent are absolutely key. So thank you for organizing it, and thank you with Frame and your group to support talent. As always, when you are a jury member, it's very, very difficult. And you will see tonight when we will announce that we were debating and there were conversations that couldn't really find an easy answer.
So we will find out tonight. Can you paint us a picture of your typical working day?
Typical working day, I would say, is just asking questions. Asking questions to my clients. And I think it's very important to ask questions. Asking questions to creatives. Asking questions to myself and to ourselves. Asking questions to clients. At the end of the day, the most important thing is why? What? Why do they want to change? What are they looking for? Because if they do not know what they are looking for and why they are looking for a talent, then this is for sure going to be very difficult to help them. It's to ask also the creatives what, why, what is their vision, what is their dream, and to ask ourselves how we can push, how can we invent all together what will be meaningful tomorrow. So it's always to invent. I am fascinated by the edge, by the fringe, by what's next, by what's new. So it's always questioning, and then after working on trying to be a catalyst or a curator, knowing what is happening, but also as a curator, choosing the talent who can help the brand we are working for.
So that means that you should know a lot of people, a lot of talents, a lot of creative people, and a lot of brands, and you need to know from both parties what they want in order to be able to make a good connection.
So,
how do you do that? How do you keep up with all these people and brands?
So I have a wonderful team. So it's a teamwork, and we are based in Paris and Milan. In New York, we are working internationally. We have, as you know, a digital platform, Eyes on Talents, with the best for the best talents as well. But at the end of the day, thanks to internet, information now is there. I mean, someone who is interested in the creative field can find who is doing what. So it's not so much about, yes, of course, it's about who is doing what, but it's more about understanding in a radical way, in a critical way, what will create a difference, and in a very humble way as well, to try and understand what will help a brand to become, to be always very strong, and then to be the catalyst, and then to be the curator, and then to select or to propose the persons who can help a brand.
You made a little presentation about that, about which we can start now, but then you would need the clicker.
I wrote words to share with you, and I said at the end of the day, I really came up with this idea of creative leadership. And creative leaders, for me, it's all of us are creative leaders in our own right. I'm sure that there is all of us, we have a field where we are advanced. We are advanced. And when I say that creative leadership is about living with the chronos, I've never seen something that is not in the zeitgeist, not in the chronos, that lasts long. Think about watch, think about a tie, think about all the things that we are not using anymore because they are just not in the chronos. So creative leaders are always in the chronos. Being a catalyst, all the creative leaders are always a catalyst of the society. It means that they're absorbing the context, and in fact they catalyze and come up with a solution. Inventing the new normal, and I am obsessed with the fact that the norm should be challenged. But in fact, it's a new norm that is coming. It's always something coming from the fringe, becoming the new norm, and then something else comes from the fringe and becomes the new norm. So,
can you give an example of that? I mean, what we didn't know before, and that became the new normal?
For example, I mean, using cell phones. At the beginning, it was really, not that much in use, and then it became the norm. Any kind of communication tool at the beginning was something that was not a common usage and became the new norm. When Steve Jobs invented the iPod, it became the new norm. So everything that in our world today that we are using, a sneaker is a new norm. And it was, for sports, and it became a new norm. So most of the things we are living with started on a different purpose or at the fringe and then became the new norm.
But have they been suggested by creative leaders, or have they just been adopted by the street? I mean, sneakers, for instance. I don't think they were put on the market by a creative genius of sorts, but they were just adopted by the street, and now they're everywhere.
Yes, because in fact, it was with the chronos. Because when you are living a life with mobility, you are more convenient. It's very much more convenient to be in sneaker because our life is mobile today. So the chronos is about that. And it's being a catalyst because in fact it is the solution. So that's why it became a new normal. It's because in fact it simplifies the life. But in the same time, it simplifies the life. But in the same time, it has to be with a very strong design component. And I'm sure that you will be on my side to say that very fortunately, I have never seen an ugly product or an ugly service becoming successful. If you think at water, l'eau déviant, I mean, in France, we love eau de viande, but in the States, they also eau de viande. It's plain water. Why do we ask for eau de viande? We ask for, I mean, a cup of champagne, but we ask for a bottle of Evian water because of all the narrative that is around the bottle of Evian. Same thing, of course, for Apple. Same thing for the relaunch of Fiat. Sure, for BMW as well. But the relaunch of Fiat is interesting. It was completely bankrupt. And through cool design with lovely colors, this firm resurrected and even made the acquisition of Chrysler. So it really proves that design as a very important component. At least I've never seen a creative leader who cannot, come up with a life-changing design component. Being honest. And I think that today, in the panel, I heard a lot of things about that. I think that being honest is super important. And even more so today, with the internet, because everything you do is very visible. Being honest, integrity that means intenere, hold together, honest in any manner.
Why is that important, being honest?
Because once again, when you look at what is meaningful, there is always honesty. And I cannot find an example of something that is not really honest, that has been sustainable on the long term.
Let's hope this will be true for the current president of the United States.
And being honest, I think that today is very much has always been a very important value, but even more so because today, when something is not honest, it's very visible. And I was listening about storytelling, and I would rather say that I prefer story making. Because I do not think that today we should tell stories. We should just make stories, which I feel more honest. And
what's the difference between telling a story and making a story?
But when you are telling a story, you can tell a story. It's like, when the kids go sleep and you tell them a story, maybe it's just a fantasy. Today, creative leaders, they do not need to tell a story. They are making a story. And in fact, because a story is everything I've said, there is an impact. They do not need to tell. Most of all the designers and the creative minds that we've seen today in the juries, it's other people who are talking about what they've done, not necessarily themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't need to when it's very, very strong. And then I've heard as well in the last panel this word being radical. And I think that creative leadership today, it's about being radical, being honest in mind and in execution, and being radical.
But being radical, I imagine that it can come at the cost of losing people, at excluding people, because you are so radical. Would you agree?
No. I think that every brand, every creative leader, shouldn't please everyone. Creative leaders have an individuality. They are individuals. And then they speak to an audience, to a community. They shouldn't speak to everyone. Every brand has a very different. We're talking about Gucci. Alessandro Michele has probably nothing to do with Calvin Klein. Shigeru Ban has nothing to do with another architect. And it's good that way. Everyone has his own individuality, provided it's connected with the time, it has an impact. Mm-hmm. So it excludes, but it is very inclusive in the same time. It really includes people who feel part of the same sensibility, of the same community. Mm-hmm.
So you work a lot for brands, you speak about creative leadership, and you also address brands in that way. So what makes something a brand today, and how can it be relevant in the years to come?
Being that's for sure. And when you see the brands that have resurrected very fast, I think that very much they were on this path. I think that brands will be meaningful provided they have this individuality, which I was referring to. So this fact that what they are saying, no one else is saying the same thing. In that way, they are inclusive. And in fact, being inclusive, it's a very radical word because in Latin, and I think it's very important to go back to the meaning of words and to the etymology of words. Inclusive means inclaudere, so to put, in fact, in a place, but you put in a place that you have chosen yourself. So being inclusive is just offering a space, and you are joining this space if you feel comfortable. So brands in any field, whether it is in architecture, whether it is in fashion, whether it is in food, whether it is in any field, have an individuality, and they have to be very honest with their individuality. Mm-hmm. It's my opinion.
Many brands still have products as an output, objects, clothes, cars, food indeed. But the way we are dealing with objects is changing. Access to a product is replacing ownership of a product. So how does this impact brands and creative leadership?
I think that we are really at a very interesting turning point, as you said, that to experience a brand or to be part of a brand, we do not need to own the brand. And it's part of the sharing economy. When we see Airbnb, when we see, of course, Uber, Airbnb, when we see Be Omni, when we see all these brands, they nevertheless have a very strong design component. And we all know that Airbnb took off when they recruited an art director and a photography director who did beautiful, beautiful photographies, and you really felt engaged. So product, we all need at the end of the day product. So product will be absolutely, will remain, I mean, the expectation. But I would say the minimum expectation. That the product is perfect is the minimum expectation, whatever the price. However, it is all the creative interactions that are not transactional, but that much more generous, that really leads you to being part of the community, that I feel are a wonderful opportunity for creative minds, a wonderful opportunity.
Communities. Tap into communities.
Yes, because in fact, it's not necessary, as we said, to go into a store to buy a product. However, brands have today the possibility to share with an audience, not just in a transactional manner, but in a much more, I mean, as we said, inclusive, creative content. We were referring to brands now who are sharing performances, who are sharing. Look at Moncler. I don't know if you have seen what Moncler has done yesterday. They
Is that a client of yours?
We've helped them. They have commissioned 8 amazing creative minds and giving them carte blanche, and it was yesterday evening in Milan. And it is absolutely, I mean, mind-blowing to see what has been done in terms of experience. So it's not just about the products, it's everything that is shared around the product.
Why does a brand like Moncler do that, invite external designers?
Because there is a creative mind who is the CEO, who is Raymond Ruffini, who feels that the brand, which has started with a very useful product, needs, I mean, creativity, but probably not the creativity of one person, but much more content that can address a much wider audience and being inclusive at different levels.
We briefly discussed earlier today Burberry, another of your clients. They had Christopher Bailey as their CCO, so the most creative guy in the company. And then at a certain moment in time, he also became the CEO, which is something different. So do you think it will be possible for creatives to combine both tasks? Because now he stepped down as the CEO. Is that one bridge too far, you think, for a real creative to also deal with the business side of things?
My views is that at the helm of every brand, in fact, you have to have a visionary, whether this person is design trained or not. You have at the helm of some brands, we take the example of Nike. Mark Parker, as you know for sure, is a designer. And he's the CEO of Nike. And he has made amazing creative choices. However, he's not directly involved in the product. He's involved in the global brand strategy. So I think that it's very challenging for a large listed company to keep both positions in the same time, to be the CEO and the CEO. However, every brand that is creatively led, at the end of the day, must be led by a visionary.
Be it a creative or a business person, that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, because I mean, most of the strong brands that we see today, of the 20th century at least, and even of the 21st century, were not set up by trained designers, just because in the first half of the 20th century, schools were not existing. If you think about fashion, I mean, most of the designers such as Chanel, Armani, and even Paul Smith were not trained designers.
So you deal a lot with luxury and fashion brands and with fashion and accessory designers. Let's make a little step towards architects and interior designers who increasingly work with brands. As we've just heard, they design retail stores, they design exhibitions for brands, even workplaces for brands. Based on your experience with fashion and accessory designers working for brands, what is your advice for architects and interior designers to work with brands and to be successful in doing that?
I think that we are at a time where, because there is no need to go into a store, there is no need. So, I mean, the reason to go to a store is because we just want two reasons, probably: knowledge, and in fact being inspired, being part of a community, part of a creative community. So for creative minds and architects and visual and creative minds, it's an âge d'or, I would say. It's really a golden age, in my views, that is in front of them, because you will go to stores because you want to see what they have done. So I really see now an âge d'or for physical expression, because there is no need. So there will always only be a reason to go to get knowledge of their work and to experience. It's a little bit like a museum. I'm fascinated, at least living in Paris, merci. Living in Paris, it's raining. We have had an awful month of January. It was raining every single day. And you will see people queuing up in front of museum, queuing up with an umbrella, queuing up during hours, in front of the Palais Tokyo, in front of the most radical exhibitions. And it's really to get knowledge and to get exposed to, what I was saying, creative minds. So I think it's definitely an âge d'or, a golden age.
Mm-hmm. But in order to maintain successful over a longer period of time for architects and interior designers working with brands, you know from the inside what brands are looking for today. What are they looking for?
They are looking for two things. Of course, they are looking for strong creative statement, and I think that we have plenty of examples, from the Aesop to many examples of brands who have made very strong choices of architecture in every field. I mean, in every field, for their stores, for pop-up, for events, for any kind of permanent or non-permanent processes. So from working for those brands, they have usually an inside team who is doing the more commercial part of especially in the perfume and cosmetics. But they are commissioning, I mean, great architects and great visual person for on a much more important manner now. yeah, I think that the end, as it was already said, the end of, zillion of stores that are looking the same, fortunately, I mean, it has come to an end.
Well, we've been discussing technology a lot today, how that will impact the world in ways that we don't know yet. I mean, you were judging this morning, but we were here listening to people talking about technology and the possible ways it will impact our existence in the future. That was quite frightening, to be honest. And on the other hand, very seductive and very hopeful. But in any case, creatives have to deal with technology as it is now, and they don't know how that will impact the world of tomorrow. So what does that mean for creatives? I mean, should they immerse themselves in everything technological? Should they be in the know of every possible technology that they could use to shape worlds? Or should they hire the best technicians and hire the best engineers?
Do you know what? I mean, I am slightly disagree with what you're saying. You said creatives should...
Or you can disagree totally.
You said should, da. No, creatives know. They are going to do the right thing for sure. They are going to do, absolutely, creative minds invent the future, even today. So they absolutely will they know what to do. So this is my first take on your question. The second take is that I'm very interested in what is happening when it comes to data. Because today, and we all know that in Europe we have the regulation coming when it comes to data, and that we are owning our data, and we are going to be allocating our data. However, now, brands will be able to completely personalize what they send you or how they message to you. So I am not super clear about if I say this and the combination with creatives and what it will mean, but it will be very interesting, and we are really at this turning point where brands will not address their audience anymore in the same way. Of course, it already exists, and when we think about Net-a-Porter and when we see about all these brands, they have already experienced this. Many brands were very late on the front of data, and what I'm just saying is that now they are investing a lot of money on how to pile up and manage and articulate and monitor data on their customers.
I can imagine that our audience has some questions for you. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to raise your hand, and we've got somebody with a microphone nearing you. Not at the moment.
No one.
Which is not a problem at all, because if I look at the clock, we are perfectly on time. For my last question, is there a basic universal quality that each and every creative needs to have in order to be successful? How fast our world will be changing?
I would say probably the last one, being radical.
Being radical.
Being as an individual, and individual means non dividere, so being unique and being radical. And if you are connected with the time, if the design component is there, and if you excel in execution, I've never seen that it's not a success, whatever kind of aesthetic it is.
Thank you for your confidence in creatives. Thank you very much for this conversation. Thank you very much. Floriane de Saint Pierre. An applause, please.